Police officers of Reddit, what was your "they could have gotten away with it if they had kept their mouth shut" moment? I was a cop on an Air Force base in Alaska. 3 guys robbed our Class 6 store, liquor, and we responded to the store but got caught in traffic at a light on the way. So we were sitting there with lights and sirens on trying to get people to move out of the way when the back door to the car ahead of us opens and a guy gets out and goes spread eagle against his trunk. Confused, we get out to see what was up and realize that these were the robbers. Pull over this guy for expired tabs. Ask for his ID and he's feeling around for his wallet. Can't find it. He says, "Ah man, I'm one of you. It's cool. Oh, what department? Oh, actually I'm a security guard. But same thing, I'm polite. So where's your ID? Oh, it's in the," and he motions to the trunk. "It's in the trunk, actually. No, my BS radar is going off. Okay, want to get your ID out of the trunk?" "Nah, I don't have it." He starts looking around for another story to use. But now I know I'm supposed to stay out of the trunk. He's also not giving me any more information. No ID. Then I have to take you in and get you fingerprinted. I'm going to get into that trunk one way or another. He's looking like he's lost. I ask him what's in the trunk, but he's not talking anymore. We pull him out and get him in cuffs. Another officer takes him to get ID through fingerprints. Since his car is expired past 6 months, California, we tow the car. In the process of getting ready to tow the car, we need to take a quick inventory. In the trunk was a police uniform with fake patches and a metal badge. No gun, but a duty belt. He also has stacks of child porn. This is a guy who a neighboring city had been looking for months. His mo was to dress as a police officer. Talk to kids and you can figure out the rest. If he just gave me his name, I could have looked up his ID and verified he had one. I'd probably have let him go. But, edit. The neighboring city had zero information as to his name. They only had a vague description of the car and the fact he was posing as a police officer. In fact, what he would do is start talking to a kid in the 9 to 12-year-old range. Tell him he has to be taken in for questioning. Handcuff the kid, and take him to his car. He was a bad dude. Edit 2. I just found out about the platinum and gold and silver. I truly appreciate your generosity and I'm humbled and honored to be the recipient. Thanks for all the kind words. As an officer, we just don't hear enough of the thanks. But really, we knew that going in. Take care and stay safe. I had a car pass me once. Passenger hangs the upper half of his body out of the passenger side window with his middle finger in the air while screaming, "F the police." He had my attention for the seatbelt violation. I got behind the car and ran the registration. Registration is suspended. Registered owner's driver's license is attached to the registration and his license is suspended. Registered owner also has 2 warrants for retail theft. I stopped the car, and they both started with the free speech thing and how I can't stop them for giving me the finger or swearing, which is 100% correct. When I pointed out that I can, however, stop them for the passenger not wearing a seatbelt and for the registration violation, suddenly they got quiet. Driver got arrested for suspended license and his warrants and the passenger got himself a citation. The driver's vehicle got impounded. Moral of the story, tell your passengers to shut their mouths. Had that guy not been a moron, his buddy would have been homeward bound. This situation came from a friend of mine. So he lived with 3 other guys in a 4-bedroom apartment. One day when only one roommate was home, the police came knocking. They asked if they could come in and search for suspected drug use. Here is where I should mention the roommate who was home was kind of an oblivious shutan who spent most of his day playing WoW or Magic the Gathering in his room. So of course he says sure, come on in, having no idea what his roommates have been up to. In room 1 they find nothing, as that was the oblivious guy's room. Room 2 they find a personal amount bag of weed. Room 3 they find a pipe. Roommate 3 didn't smoke, but he and RM2 played video games a lot, so it belonged to RM2. In room 4 they find a possession with intent to distribute giant bag of weed, apparently just a RM2 told me it was the most weed he'd ever seen in one place, and he was pissed because he always bought from someone else. Didn't know his roommate was a dealer. 3 of the 4 get arrested. Only one who didn't was the guy who let them in. My friend was roommate 3. Charges against him got dropped because RM2 fessed up to the pipe being his and got a slap on the wrist. Not sure what happened to RM4. They never saw him again. Currently watching live PD, and the guy told the officer I have caffeine pills in my back pocket, gets them out, puts them on the hood. Everyone's chill. Dude then comes clean and says it's Molly, and the officers look at each other and go, do we even have a test kit for that? Other officer says no, and the dude's face just shows he should have kept his mouth shut. I was asked to help keep peace while 2 probation officers searched a guy's house. Before everyone gets upset, in most jurisdictions, you have to submit to a search of your person and your home if you're on probation. During the search, a PO lifted the probationer's mattress and said monotonously, "Wow." The probationer got upset and said, "Yeah, it's meth and a gun. Arrest me, I don't give a f." Turns out the PO found a huge dildo, but after the guy opened his mouth, the PO lifted the mattress more and found a bunch of individually wrapped grams of meth and a Glock 17. The PO said that seeing the dildo was enough for him to ignore the mattress, but because the guy said something, he kept looking. That guy's attitude and his need to open his mouth got him 10 years in prison. Okay, so we had a DUI accident where a guy kept driving straight into the woods into a tree because his GPS was predicting a future street. He walked back to his hotel room and left his check-in papers in the car, so we go to the hotel and go to his room and knock on the door. He did not have to answer, but he did. He was pretty clearly drunk. I asked him if he had anything to drink since the accident. He did not have to answer, or he could have told us that he drank after the accident. He said, "No, I haven't had anything to drink since the accident. And where I'm from you have 24 hours to report a property damage only accident. So it wasn't even a hit and run." So as I'm locking the guy up, he tells me he's a lawyer. I told him I hope you're not a defense attorney. But in his defense, he was drunk. Not a cop, but pretty applicable to the thread. When I was in high school, I liked to park in parking spots that cars had parked poorly next to just as a f*** you. One time I was at a high school football game and a Jeep had parked like shit. He was nearly halfway into the spot next to him and parked at an angle. I was driving a 98 feet Chevy Silverado, big old pickup truck, at the time, and I had my brother help guide me into the spot, so I was perfectly in the lines. That made it so the driver door was completely impossible to get in. I took a picture for the novelty of it and went on my way. When I got back to my car, the Jeep was gone and every panel on the passenger side of my car was keyed. There was an officer nearby, so I told him about it and showed him the picture. He told me there's not a lot they could do because there were no witnesses, but he'd give it a shot. He looked up their license plate, called them and asked them if they had done it. They confessed and ended up having to pay $1,600 in restitution along with getting a felony. Not a police officer, but I do know of this house in my local village that was a notorious drug den. The police came to search the place but couldn't find anything. As they were leaving, the lovely owner yelled at them that they should have brought the drug dogs. So yeah, they came back a few days later with the drug-sniffing dogs and found huge amounts of drugs hidden away. Absolute morons. A cousin of a friend of mine travels around the state to take in deadbeat dads. Gets to one place. A 4-year-old kid is home. Dad isn't. So the cop starts talking to the kid, making sure he's okay and such. After a bit of this, kid says to cop, "Want to see my dad's secret garden?" Takes him to a closet with a false back. Opens it up to see a small pot farm. Guy gets home to a few cop cars and a few charges. The absolute best example of this has to be Dennis Rader A.K.A. the BTK killer. For those of you unfamiliar with BTK, it stood for bind, torture, kill, and he was a notorious serial killer spanning several decades from 1974 until 1991, and he's responsible for at least 10 murders. Anyway, BTK went silent for a long time and nobody had heard anything up until 2004 when he started sending in letters to the police and media again. In 2005 he sends a letter to the police asking if he sends in a floppy disk will they be able to trace it. They tell him no. So the doofus sends them a disk. They are able to recover metadata from a deleted Word document from the disk which contained his name and the church where he was president of the council. They were easily able to find him after that, and he was arrested and eventually given 10 consecutive life sentences. He probably could have gotten away with all those murders if he would have just stayed silent. Not a police officer, but my mom once managed to talk her way into a lesser fine for a traffic offense, but wasn't satisfied with that, so managed to sass her way right back into the full fine. Sigh.